Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Will It eSport, where we review games based on their viability as an online esport and we determine if it will esport. My name is Jenna, aka Giraffero, and today I am alongside Zumid. How are you doing?
Hello, hello. I'm doing good.
So, we got an interesting game today. It's a little bit of a less known game. It's called Rogue Company, and I know you've had a lot of first-hand experience with the game. Personally, I haven't had any experience with the game. All I know are statistics and hard facts on them. So, if you want to get into your first-person view of it all, you can.
Well, to start off, I think Rogue Company has a really good basis of a game, and it's kind of like its own category of a game. It's a third-person kind of shooter game, but it also has the shoulder switches, which is um, quite different in games like Rogue Company and stuff like that. As well as you can have uh, the agent selection as well as their ability buys, and I think it's just a really good basis of a game that they created. And on paper, I think it should have done well, but I think that overall it's starting to decline over time and wither away with the competitive factor.
Right. And you know what? I've seen a lot of articles. I've been reading up a lot on Rogue Company, and basically the general consensus is that this game takes a lot of already known game mechanics and kind of just throws them into the mix. Like I saw an article that described Rogue Company as CS:GO with a Fortnite costume. How would you agree with that? Would you disagree with that?
Uh, I think I'd have to agree, as well as some other games. I think the character selection kind of goes into R6, as well as buying abilities can go into the Valorant kind of section of games. I think it's just a good mix of all games put together into one. And like I said, it should be good on paper, but I just think that it wasn't executed as well as they could. They are doing well with adding new characters and stuff like that, but I think that over time, people are getting a little agitated with high res with what they're doing with the character selection and as well as their abilities and how broken some characters are, as well as not balancing stuff out. I don't know if you've heard anything about the new characters Kestrel and Sigrid.
I have not.
The community is just like really mad about the Sigrid has her big shield that just completely blocks her from everything, and everyone's just like, it's overpowered, and they need to change it and balance something out to get rid of her. And I think that they need to start listening to maybe their audience better, to form maybe an esports uh, team or anything around esports for that game, because them not listening is kind of pushing some viewership and players away from the game.
And it's interesting that you say that out of all things, because we talked about this a little bit in the last episode when we were talking about Rainbow Six, the three biggest factors of what makes a good esports game, and one of the chief factors is the player reception. Is the game doing enough to support the players' views, to support the players' wishes? And being that Rogue Company has a smaller player base, I believe around let me check. I'm not actually quite sure. I think it was a few million in comparison to Rainbow Six Siege that are signed up on the game.
Mm.
Yeah, around there. Something like that. Well, anyways, for them to have a smaller player base, they really need to try to appease their players and their I gain a relationship with them. Try to gain at least a little bit of their opinion in their favor. I mean, even Ubisoft, throughout the years has made some pretty nice changes towards the game that allow the players to play at a little bit more of an even playing field. Ubisoft is really weird in the way that they make their changes. They normally make it for a certain player base versus, how Rogue Company would do it, which is being based on their entire player base, being that they don't really have an esports scene at the moment. They don't really have a higher level of players that they can look up to and say, should we do this? Should we not do this? We have to take your opinion into consideration. So honestly, I think they're going off a lot of what casual players suggest for the game, and that's not really too much of a true base, because then, people are going to be angry no matter what you do. It's like, some higher level players are going to be like, oh, well, this change was bad, and some lower level players are going to be like, well, I like this change. I like how it changes the play of casual. And with any game, you can't really get it right 100%, but with Rogue Company having such a small, tiny, tight-knit player base, you have to try to appease as many people as you can. Otherwise, those people, they're going to go on to other games.
I think that was one of their big downfalls of their development of the game. I mean, their beta was absolutely amazing. I loved the beta, but as soon as they started to get it adding ranked into the mix up of games and just other things that cause bugs and major flaws in the game, they wouldn't listen to the community and fixing those bugs. There was a menu bug where you couldn't invite friends and you'd have to restart app every time it happened, and they just took so long to fix these bugs that eventually caused people to just completely just not want to play the game. And and eventually it would cause a downward spiral of causing streamers and other viewers to just disappear. I mean, the game only averages about 1.6 thousand viewers on Twitch when it has 419,000 followers. So, for me personally, I just would not be surprised if the game dies tomorrow. They really have to listen to their community, and it helped in the beginning when they had these big streamers and like big faces like Doctor Disrespect and 100 Thieves all connected into the game. But once they stopped doing stuff with the game, it kind of just completely wiped the game, and it's now up to the community to bring the game back up.
Right, and I think that also ties in with the marketing strategy of it all, that high res, they have to do something in order to gain these big, you know, notoriety type of streamers. They have to gain these big viewership streamers, otherwise they're not going to float. I mean, we saw that in Valorant. If you look at the Valorant viewership at beta, it was almost at a 2 million peak with an average of 800k viewers, almost 8.5 times more than the viewership of Rogue Company. I mean, that truly says something, knowing that their marketing strategy was not successful, knowing that it was very lacking in the way that they got and the amount of people that they got, huge streamers that could try out their game, and even the longevity of the way that these streamers are playing the game. You even said it yourself, the high res studios, they weren't listening to their fan base. They weren't listening to their player base. And what does that say? I mean, it says they're not going to be receptive to any changes that the players want to make. And when they don't do that, they're going to lose big streamers. And big streamers that drop out of their game are going to lose huge parts of their fan base. And I mean, think of, again, the differences between Valorant and the differences between Rogue Company. These are two very similar games that came out around the same time, and guess what? I mean, the big competition with that is just the viewership of it all, and Valorant just, honestly, Rogue Company is in the shadow of Valorant. If you think about it, they are. Because, no matter how many streamers, how many important people you can get in your game, you still need to be receptive to those casual players, because eventually casual players will turn into streamers, and those streamers are going to take away those casual players from your game. It's all about what the studio itself does. It's all about how the studio can take the level of gameplay and change it for all players, not just the competitive players, not just the casual players.
Yeah, and I think Riot did a really good job with Valorant and keeping up with their community and keeping up with what they thought, maybe some fixes that they need, and maybe just any bugs that they could fix like that. And I think that's where Rogue Company really struggles, and I think that's what caused the downfall, as well as these big streamers, these big faces that represented the company in the beginning, and then slowly went away, and along with them going away went their viewership.
Right. I mean, can't agree with you more on that point, as we were kind of going in circles around it, but now looking at a little bit of a different point. We have to understand Season one, season one of Rogue Company. Yeah, I know you're shaking your head at that. Do you want to get into it a little bit?
I personally, I might be going against the grain here, but I think it was just a complete flop. I mean, they were kind of banking on that to be their boost in the game and getting everyone back from the beta or pre-beta of the game. Ooh, pre-beta of the game, and I think that it just totally did not work, and they were really banking on that to help their viewership and help streamers come back, but just had barely barely no effect to their viewership.
Right. And I mean, the main argument was that you're right, season one would revive the game, and with its mediocre statistics and its subpar marketing ability, there's only so much that new game content can do to a game itself. And again, we talked about this last episode, which was that, all of these factors have to play together in some way, shape, or form. If one factor is lacking, that factor needs to be worked on. But if all three of these factors are kind of going under, that says a lot about how the studio takes its game. It says a lot about how well they're trying to be receptive to all these comments and what they're even trying to do to fix the game itself. It's almost like, from what you're even saying, that Hi-Rez isn't taking into account the player opinion. They're not taking into account their fan base. They're not even taking into account new game material that they're trying to allow these players to consume. And there's just not a lot of complexities from Hi-Rez Studios to say, okay, well, we need to actually fix this. They're giving us new game material, but they're breaking the game every single time they give it to
Mhm.
us, and they're doing nothing about it to fix it. They're doing nothing about it to change the way that it affects the game itself.
I think their priorities are not set in the right places. I think I remember back when I used to play, there was a major bug where I think Talon's trophy systems would not get rid of the EMP grenades, and it was a major bug, and they were just not fixing it. And then maybe I don't know how long passed, and then they just threw in a new character. And I think their priorities are just not anywhere in the right places, where as there's a major bug, but they're worried about a new character dropping, and I think that they should fix out these bugs before they drop another character, because of the risk of entering this character into the system and causing more bugs in the future.
And there's almost that level of balance that you have to put into it. Should we try to push back the launch of this new game material in order to fix a game that is severely broken? Rainbow Six Siege even did that. We talked about this again last episode of Operation Health, the whole season of change for Rainbow Six Siege. They're doing a diagnostic test trying to fix out the issues before releasing any new game material. And I think that's honestly so important to do a diagnostic test and figure out, okay, what patches need to be made to this game. If it's a leaky boat, you can't be adding more things into the boat because it's just going to weigh it down even more, and the leaks are going to get even bigger, and the problems are going to get bigger as well. You cannot do something like that to Rogue Company. You simply are just breaking the game. You are turning your player base against you in the worst way possible. Why would you want to do that? I mean, you already have all of these big streamers that have dropped off from your game, have gone to Valorant, they've gone to Rainbow Six Siege, they've gone to CSGO, virtually every other game that is out there, and you're still not trying to fix the main problems, getting these players back into the game. It just seems like they put out this game with low expectations. Maybe they even exceeded their expectations, but they're not trying to follow up and build this game ground up. Even like how Ubisoft did it, like how Blizzard did their games, how, all of these different game studios at least try to put in the effort to make big improvements and retain their millions of players that they've gained.
And I think that goes into High Res's past of not really communicating with their audience and their community. I mean, in the past, they've built up such a reputation of just worrying about what they want done rather than what the community would rather it be. And and they have such a good game there. The game has so much potential, but the company that's running it is just not pushing anything that's going good into the game. I mean, they have such good mechanics that no other game has shown. I mean, it's a 4v4, you drop out of the sky, and it's mechanics that would cause the game to separate from any other game or any other popular game that is in a competitive scene.
Right, and it's not even like their new game mechanics either. It's that they are this combination of new game mechanics. It's this combination of known game mechanics rather that can filter a new game out. That's exactly what Valorant did, right? You know, we know that there's 5-on-5 tactical shooters out there that try to have a level of realism, but nothing was even closely related to what Valorant did, and that was that they took graphics, they took new cartoon-like graphics, like from Overwatch, right? And they mixed it in with player progression, they mixed it in with the ability to buy characters with these special abilities and have that type of progression, you know, have something to work towards. And they brought in a tactical level of it where you could utilize these special operators' abilities and come in and make successful rounds for yourself, you know? And something that Rogue Company has done successfully, but they're not maintaining that. They're not trying to improve on that experience for the players. And honestly, good game gone to waste. That's the huge phrase here. Good game gone to waste because they could have utilized those mechanics. They could have used them and created an even better, bigger experience for all of these players to enjoy, but instead they did not. They didn't do great with marketing. They didn't do great with the improvements of their game. They did not try to seed out these bugs and fix them. Rather, it's more game material. It's an attempt to appease all of the masses and, well, I believe we've talked about just about everything that we can with Rogue Company, and overall, I mean, we've said mostly negative things about this. I do have to agree, though, that there is a lot of negative things about this. There's a lot of factors to have to look into. I mean, we've touched on the statistics of the game, you know, the viewership at beta drop. We've looked at the reception of the game from players' point of view and relatively from the studio's point of view. And we've also looked at the season 1 mark and where the game was around then. And honestly, all those factors combined, it just doesn't look like a good mix for Rogue Company. So I guess overall, that has been this episode. We both have said that Rogue Company most likely will not make it to the esports team before it dies out. And that shall be that. So on the next episode, we'll be looking at a completely new game, a completely new player base. And, well, we'll see you then. This has been me, Jenna, aka Giraffero, and Zumid for Will It eSport.